In the scenario we're going to be looking at today, we'll be using Jenkins Enterprise to drive a continuous delivery pipeline, but leveraging Release Engineer on the back end to perform the automated deployment steps. Additionally, we'll be using Git, Maven, and Artifactory as well. Now the big picture here is we want to create a continuous delivery pipeline that simultaneously serves the needs of development, QA, and production operations teams, as well as business stakeholders, providing greater visibility and control of the process than what Jenkins alone can provide. So let's assume that while the development organization has the capability to initiate the pipeline and deploy to the integration environment, the owners of the QA and production environments still need to approve in order for the pipeline to proceed into their environments, which means there will be manual approval checkpoints along the way. Of course, as your appetite for full-blown continuous delivery grows, this manual approval arrangement could evolve into a always approved setup. We'll show how Release Engineer enables environment owners to block and otherwise control deployment activity for their environments a little later on. To start, let's take a look at our three environments: integration, QA, and production. Currently, they're all running version 1.0 of a simple web app that reports the application's uptime as well as some additional configuration details. So what I'm going to do now is make a small code change, submit that change to version control, after which Jenkins will build the change, publish it to Artifactory, and invoke Release Engineer to deploy the publish artifacts to our three environments. So just going to add an additional field into the web app and then increment the application version. Next, I'm going to add the change to a git commit, and actually commit it to the repository, and push the change to a central repository. We've configured this pipeline job to poll SEM, so it will detect the change and build it automatically for us. Now, one nice feature of Jenkins Enterprise that you can see here is this pipeline dashboard view. You don't get this with the open source version of Jenkins. This dashboard view gives you a quick overview of the pipeline's current status, including the history of previous runs. I think it's a really nice feature, allows you to get quick status updates at a glance, with this information all displayed visually. Okay, so it's detected the change and initiated the pipeline. It's gone through the build, code coverage, and publish stages, and has now deployed to integration. Now it's paused, waiting to see if we want to proceed to QA. Before we do that, let's take a look at some of the logging and the deployed application in integration to make sure that we want to proceed. So we see here after the Maven output and the Artifactory output where it publishes the artifact, we see here the logging from Release Engineer about the deployment of of this one file. So we can see that it's checked it out from Artifactory and deployed it to a target location on our integration server. If we also want to take a look at the application itself just to make sure that the change has been applied, we can see here it added the new field for the JSP version and incremented the application version to 1.1. Okay, so everything looks good there. You see we have the capability to approve the deployment to QA here in the log. We could also make that approval here at this page. These checkpoints can be configured in such a way that only privileged users can approve the deployment, and we can also integrate that approval process into RE's release engineer's approval mechanism, so we have tracking of approvals inside of release engineer as well. Okay, so just going to proceed with the deployment to QA. We can see it's been deployed now, version 1.1. And if we're happy with that change, we can go ahead and proceed with the deployment to production. Okay, we see the change in production as well. Now, since this is a simple example, as you can imagine, the configuration in Release Engineer is pretty simple as well. We have this application here called Uptime. It's configured with a single component. This component itself is made up of a single component item, which corresponds to the WAR file. We can see here it's going to pull from a repository that we've defined for Artifactory snapshots, and it's going to pull a WAR file, and the URI it's going to use is based on a parameter. This parameter for the artifact package actually gets passed in from the Jenkins job. If we want to see the history of a particular application over time, we can come over here to the timeline, get a more detailed view of what was deployed, logging of the deployment, some additional details, reports. Again, for a simple application, it's not terribly interesting. But what we're going to do next is take a look at a more involved example. Okay, now that we've gone through a simple example, I'll show a bit of how Release Engineer solves that scripting and agent sprawl problem that I talked about earlier with an example that has multiple components. So our simple example just had a single component, Uptime Tomcat here, that deployed our WAR file to the Tomcat server. This IT Guys app here has two components, one application files, two database alter scripts. These are used to deploy the application files and the database change scripts as necessary to the appropriate servers, depending on the environment configuration. If we look at one of the properties for one of these components, you can see a key property here is the component type. So this is what controls what gets what component gets mapped to what server. If we take a look then at our IT Guys application and look at the assigned environments for that application, you can see we've got an integration environment, a production environment, 2 QA environments. Now, looking at the integration environment, we can see that it's got in it a single server, and that single server has assigned to it all of the server component types. So this is very common in an integration environment, a single server playing all the roles of all the different component servers that you would have for an application, and that would be distinct servers in a more robust environment like a production or a QA environment. And as you can see here, in the QA and production environments, we have distinct application and database servers. And the app server gets the application files, database server gets the database files. This model that we have enables you to have the same deployment process that can be adapted and applied to environments of varying size and structure with very little difficulty, and all without the complex scripts and agents you would probably need to build something even remotely comparable with Jenkins alone. Now, I promised earlier that I would show how environment managers can view and manage their environments and sort of better control when deployments happen. And one of the great features that we have with Release Engineer is this environment calendar. So here, looking at this QA environment, we can easily go and look and see the deployment activity that's been going on. Click one of these and link to a log. But we've also got here certain parts of the calendar that are blocked out. So these are particular in the black color are actual blackouts. They're nothing's allowed to be deployed at this time. If we look here at the production environment, we've got this set up with a few other types. Here's a blockout, but this is a scheduled release. So deployment is scheduled to happen at this time. This IT Guys bi-monthly release. And then here later in blue, we've got just a window, so it's reserved for a particular release to go out at that time, and no others can use the environment at that time. So yeah, just something that's very helpful for an organization. You have different owners, different stakeholders that are interested in the varying environments, and potentially different owners, different roles that own those environments, and can come here to both control the environment and see what's going on as well. So when you consider all of the features I showed today that help you eliminate the need for the complex scripts and agents that would be required with building a deployment pipeline with Jenkins alone, and then also consider all of the detailed audit reporting that we've got, approvals, and the environment calendar, as you just saw. Also, we have this capability to group application deployments together, multiple application deployments together into to form whole releases, so that really an entire release of perhaps a whole suite of applications or services could be coordinated all in one process. I think it's easy to see how Jenkins continuous delivery pipeline that's leveraging Release Engineer for its application release automation that can really serve a large enterprise organization with lots of demanding stakeholders. If you have questions or would like more information on Release Engineer, please visit openmakesoftware.com, call our 800 number, or drop us a line at request-info@openmakesoftware.com.